There's so many
Yeah.
storylines that we can cling to. And whether those things are true, it actually doesn't matter because it becomes a distraction away from acknowledging our story.
Welcome back. We're going to just get it over with.
Sparkle Eyes. Welcome to Girls Gotta Eat.
Hi, guys. No! That was perfect. Are you ready?
How do you feel?
That was strong.
How do I feel? I'm a little sweaty, a little nervous.
Okay.
It's all right. At least I'm not on camera.
Do you want a fan placed on you? Ashley gets hot too. We keep a fan here for
I've
her.
had it with Dyson fucking air fans. Ashley has one in her room because she needs it to sleep.
You guys have to stop having so much sex in the middle of the night. She'll be less hot.
Oh my
Middle of
God.
the day.
Yeah, that doggy in the middle of the day.
Jesus.
So we're excited to have you here. We're going to talk to you a little bit, and then we're going to have you see your way out of here.
Great.
Yeah, this is not our guest for the day.
No.
He will have his own episode.
After a year.
We treat our employees the same.
Right.
So like,
But it's also been 2.5 years.
in his eyes, in his sparkle
In
eyes.
his sparkly eyes.
We have been together for 2.5 years since the first DM. But no, okay.
Let's just thank our partners, and then we'll get right back to Sparkle Eyes.
Okay.
Thanks to Daily Harvest for supporting Girls Gotta Eat. Take the stress out of your morning with delicious and nutritious food delivered right to your door. Go to dailyharvest.com/GGE to get up to $65 off your first box.
And we'd like to thank Nutrafol for supporting Girls Gotta Eat. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve visible thickness and strength. Go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code GGE to save $10 off your first month subscription, plus free shipping on every order. And big shout out today to Helix Sleep. Take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners in honor of Black Friday. Go to helixsleep.com/GGE and use the code HelixPartner25.
All right. So it's been a great week. We're going to talk about what's been happening, but I just want to say we released new flavors of the Blow Gel with Vibes Only last week and a new toy, the Debbie Air Pulse Suction Vibe. It's my favorite orgasm of my life. So thank you guys for purchasing it, storing the store, supporting it. Our 2 new flavors of Blow Gel are Sugar Cookie and Peppermint Patty, and it's been going great. Thank you guys for the support. We're glad that you love it.
Yeah, so the Sugar Cookie is flying. The Peppermint Patty is doing great too, but the group that dressed up for the Halloween shows as iconic men of GGE, which we talked about, as a little sparkle eyes Dallas business card guy and short zipper king. She DM'd and she was so wonderful. She sent the photos and she was like, I wanted a blow gel, this and that. You know, I was wondering if you would sell them at the shows, all this, which we hope to one day. But I was like, let me send you one as soon as the new flavors drop. Just remember to DM me. And she DM'd me first thing this morning. I was like, oh my God, I was hoping it was Peppermint Patty so much.
Wait,
It was so
really?
cute. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So she could be giving a Peppermint Patty blowjob as we speak.
Or a peppermint pussy,
But right, she could be getting her peppermint pussy eaten as we speak.
because they are vulva friendly.
Yes.
So thank you guys for supporting vibesonly.com. You can grab all those things great for holiday gifts. We have the most beautiful packaging I've ever seen from any sex toy company. Very high end and chic. So great for yourself or for somebody else.
Yes. Every time we gift one to someone, they just are blown away by the packaging. It's so smooth. It's better than an Apple box. I'll say it.
It is. It's better than Hermes, Apple, all of it. It's so smooth.
Yeah.
Sexy. Like your feet that day when we missed that flight.
Yeah. Okay.
So the shows have been going great. We've had 3 California shows this month.
Yeah.
We have not gone to San Diego yet as we record this. We'll go to San Diego in 2 days. But San Francisco, fantastic. LA, unbelievable, our hometown show. And Sparkle Eyes and I lied to you for months, planning months.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
October.
Since October?
No,
Beginning of
September.
October.
No, September. One with the Texas shows.
End of September.
End of September. Yeah, September 29th. You originally messaged me. It actually was the second time you solo texted me, and I was like so nervous. I was like, what's he going to ask?
I was nervous.
And you were like, I'm thinking about surprising Ashley to show. What do you think about this weekend in Texas? And we were talking about some other shows maybe. And then you were like, LA would be really fun because I could stay for the weekend with her.
And,
Because
like,
Texas, we were going in and out really quickly.
Yeah, and like all of our friends and
Right.
stuff.
That was what you had said to me. You were like, way more people are going to be there. It'll be way more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was concerned about just bothering you guys and like adding a layer to it. But Raina was like, no, it's fine.
Oh, you don't annoy me. It's my favorite thing about you.
You could have been with Raina's dad in Texas, but it's so much better that you're here. And then also, like, this was going to be a time when we weren't going to see each other for almost a month. And so this cut it up, and it was just so special. And so you guys are planning this. I did know, but not until the day of. So you guys did a great job, and then you blew it, obviously.
I sold myself.
No,
His communication style changed, and you were like, I could tell.
I think that we know each other so well in the way that we communicate. So the smallest change, and I hoped anyway, I kept like trolling you about it. All leading up to it, I was like, see you Saturday. Like I was trolling him about coming down, like just jokingly, because I want him to come and be there so badly. You know, we live here now, and I love when he visits, of course. So I realized it in like mid-afternoon. And the thing that tipped me off was that I sent him a video that was actually Ryan, our videographer, in his van. Ryan's van is parked out front.
That's what I want to talk about.
We'll talk about it. So I basically sent him this video like, ha ha ha, how funny is this? And he was like, oh, it's not loading, but he got the text. So immediately I'm like, he's on a plane. And then I was like running the tape, and I was like, he hasn't yet told me how work is today, because the whole thing was that he thought he had to work.
To tell you to tell her about work. I literally meant to tell you got to tell her how work is.
I didn't want to be like too responsive or like answering everything, because let's be real, you don't respond to everything I ask you all the time.
She's never not texting with you. I'm like, Ashley, hello.
So, but then I'm like, okay, his communication has been a little different today. And then what is the smoking gun was first thing in the morning. At 7 a.m., we get up in San Francisco to fly out, early morning flight. So I'm still foggy. Obviously, I hadn't had my coffee, still really tired. And you would text me something very sweet. But basically, I didn't mean to stop sharing location with you. I don't know why it said that, which I never got a notification that you stopped sharing location anyway. So you didn't need to say that. But
I get them all the
I know.
time
I thought you usually do.
I didn't know.
Right.
You usually do get the notification. So when I realized, I go, oh my God, and the stopping sharing location. And then I knew it in my soul. And I made a note in my own phone so I could have a receipt for myself.
The title of the note was receipt. And it is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
And I wonder how many people have thought this. Like if you thought someone was going to surprise you, I mean, thought you were going to get engaged, whatever it is, you have a feeling. And what you don't want to do is tell people that are going to follow up in case you're wrong.
Totally.
So I didn't want to like tell you, or obviously I was like, if he's here, Raina's in on it. I didn't want to tell anybody that could be like, so did he come? And then I have to be like, no. So I put this receipt in my own phone that said he's going to surprise me, and I timestamped at 12:38 p.m. And then I did voice note Corey, because we were talking back and forth, and I was like, okay, I think he's going to come to LA tonight. And just, I don't know. I am hard to surprise.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
I know. I was like, you're not going to get anything by her.
Like my 18th birthday, my mom had planned this whole surprise party, and this was her fault, but I did come home and I saw the invite on the computer desk, and I was like, started inviting my own friends. So like she didn't miss anything. I started planning that myself, and I didn't tell them for years. I let them think I was surprised.
I almost slipped up on the phone one day when we were talking.
What?
And then I talked to Raina about it, and she was like, she's never going to miss anything. She's way too fucking smart.
He was like, I don't think she
everything. You can't lie to her. And I was like,
she's a nightmare. You can't lie to her about anything.
Yeah.
He was like, I said this thing. I don't think she caught it. I was like, she caught it.
Well, and then you made a dinner reservation for last night, and you were like, have you ever been in this place?
you had no idea that
That didn't tip me off, but then it all came together when I realized it. And then I felt like I could feel when you landed, because you said you took a nap, such a lie. And then you kind of resurfaced. You're like, oh, I feel rejuvenated. And then I was like, and then I was like,
Meanwhile, he was just here. We're just talking shit on stuff.
So I was like, he's landed. And I was like, where is he? I kept looking out my window. And meanwhile, he's here at your house.
Yes, me, him, and Ryan were hanging out. And you were like, you guys hung out without me? It was for you.
So because you wanted to surprise me at the venue, the whole way it went was really sweet. But I was telling him, I was like, I can't believe you were just like at Raina's house hanging out with her. Like, it warms my heart.
It was great.
Made me
we
so
talked
happy.
about everything under the sun.
I love it. And I was like, was it awkward at all when it was just the two of you? He was like, no. I was like, okay, good.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed that hour. It was like really fun. And so I was saying to Melanie, my friend Melanie, the other day, I was like, I'm carrying so many lies. Because one of our good friends is pregnant.
Yeah.
And she was like, please don't tell Ashley. I want to have this moment where I tell her. And I was like, I really,
brutal.
really want to tell her, but I can't steal this from you. Like, that's like the one thing I won't steal from a person.
Yeah.
Like if somebody else got engaged, I'm telling everybody. But pregnancy, I'm like, how many times do you have to tell somebody that? So I was like, fine, I won't tell her. And I knew that you were coming, and it was like killing me. And I was saying to Melanie, I was like, all these secrets, and it's just a web of lies.
It is tough.
And she was like, well, at least
she
was like, at least they're like good secrets. She was like, people tell me they're like cheating on a spouse. And she's like, I don't want those secrets. And I was like, you're right. Your life is worse.
And then I just like, I really wanted to respect everyone, like keeping the secret. But I have to tell you, I like held back because I get to the theater. Tessa comes outside and gets me. You were there right before. And Tessa goes, drop your stuff in the green room. And then we do have to go up and do one thing. There's something kind of weird with the mics and we have to check them. I'm like, never has this happened in the history. And
I thought that was great.
And I almost
I
said
thought
to
it was
Tessa,
great.
I almost said like, he's here, isn't he? Like I almost said it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go with the flow. She did a great job. She didn't do anything to tip me off.
She was great.
And then I go, and one other thing too, I said, is Raina here yet? And you go, yeah, Rain is here. Like you stumbled for a second too. I catch every little thing. I'm like,
Sucks.
I'm the worst.
Sucks.
But it was really nice and special. Also, I knew you knew because you didn't say to me that day that I wish Sparkle Eyes was going to be here tonight. And I was like, she knows.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last thing he said to me, he was like, it's killing me that I can't complain to her about being at the airport.
Because like we just talk so much shit all the time, and I hate everybody in the general public. And I talk to you about it.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, he was like, this is killing me because I can't talk to her about all the stuff at the airport I hate.
So I texted Raina about it briefly.
I'll tell you what, you could always complain to Rain about the airport.
She said, "Okay, I'm available." I said, "Superb."
You complain to me about
we
anything,
go.
everything. I love complaining.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways,
Well, it worked out.
It was really fun and special. And I was really so glad you could be there because we had such a big group of friends come and it
was
really
so
made
special.
LA feel just like special and home. And I loved it.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to run through a partner really quick. And I feel so passionately about Nutrafol right now because I feel like my hair is really shedding and I think it could be due to hormonal changes. And I actually am seeing a dermatologist tomorrow, which I'm excited about to kind of pinpoint what's going on. But I'm relying so heavily on my Nutrafol. And I think it's also the water here. But my hairdresser in New York, she colored my hair when we were there last. And she could even tell, she was like, your hair is thinner. There's a lot of breakage and it's shedding. And she recommended Nutrafol even. She was like, what supplements are you doing? I said Nutrafol. She was like, say less. That's the one I recommend. We just love this so much. And there's like the women's for women 18 to 44, the women's vegan, the women's balance for women 45 plus, postpartum, and then there is men as well. But I really just wanted to share how I am so reliant on it right now, like never before. I've used it for years, but I'm like every single day. And I was telling you that one of the things that they have since changed since the very beginning, I started taking it in 2020, was they only recommend to take it once a day.
Right.
So it's 4 capsules, but it used to be, they would say 2 times a day. And that is more difficult to remember.
I love that they've simplified how many times a day you have to take it.
You're like your 4 capsules once a day. It's so much easier. They've redone the packaging semi-recently since the beginning, and it looks great too. So hair thinning will happen to approximately 1 in 2 women. If you're among them, no, you're not alone. It's totally normal, and Nutrafol helps women address it from within with science-backed ingredients. So if you're dealing with anything like this, no matter what the root cause is, like I'm really been struggling with this because I look at older photos and I'm like, my hair is different. Like I can see it, I can feel it. It's really, really been weighing on me. And again, I'm trying to see a doctor as well. But in the meantime, Nutrafol is truly going to be my saving grace and is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve visible thickness and strength. I feel like I can already see it, like the baby hairs start coming in. Like that's when you can know that you're getting like new growth, which I'm so happy about. From postpartum to menopause, no matter your life stage, they have 4 unique formulas, like I mentioned. And you'll just go online, take the hair health wellness quiz, identify the causes, and they will give you a personalized plan for better hair growth throughout their whole body health approach. In a clinical study, 86% of women reported improved hair growth after taking Nutrafol, women's hair growth supplement, for 6 months. Again, and so I've always taken this. I always felt the difference, but right now I feel like I'm going to see it even more as I kind of wait for this new growth to start, which can take 3 to 6 months. Again, when I first started taking it, I noticed changes within like the first couple months, but everyone is different. So you can take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code GGE. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code GGE. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code GGE.
All right. So you were here for the live shows. I just want to thank everybody again. We've been getting more emails than ever before, people saying what a special night it was. And I mean, it never ceases to stop being important to us that you guys spend your time and your money on us and that you have the best time ever. So there's 2 more shows this year. We have Toronto on December 8th and New York City December 10th. Couple tickets left, and that is it for the year. We cannot wait, and my outfits are so good.
You have been going all the way
I
off.
just want to make you proud of me.
It's so funny. We had this kind of miscommunication where we came off the Halloween shows and you were like, I just want to wear costumes forever. Like this was so fun.
Yeah.
Costumes. And
Costumes.
costumes. You sent these looks and I go, well, they do look like costumes.
And I was like, I stopped on my stairs and I was like, fuck her.
And literally, I was trying to compliment you. I was like, one of these looks like a Christmas ornament, and the other one looks like a Vegas showgirl. And you can't say they don't. And I thought that's what you were going for.
So my self-talk standing there was like, well, you sent it to her. That's asking for feedback. And she gave you the feedback. What are you mad about? Like,
I really thought I was telling you what you wanted to hear. We usually don't have a breakdown like this.
no, it was really funny because I was like, you're asking her for feedback. She's giving you feedback.
But like also those 2 things are like kind of the vibe. Christmas ornament.
Totally.
Like last
I
year,
look
you look
like
like a
one.
firecracker. I look
Yeah.
like a snow owl.
I do like a Christmas ornament this year. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So Sparkle Eyes is here and Ryan is here, our video guy. He lives in a van. He's parked outside of my house. And
Have you been in the van?
I've been in the van.
oh yeah, we
It's
all
pretty
got.
sick. Whatever these two tell you is bad because it's nice. It's a nice van.
I know
He did it
it's
all by
nice.
himself.
Oh, I think it's so.
Incredible.
They love each other.
Neither of you will get in the van.
Let's just
so
get the
let's be real.
bromance out of the way.
I love Ryan.
We know.
That makes two
So
of
does
us.
Ray.
He loves me. So
No, I mean he bought a van, gutted it, installed like heating and plumbing. I think it's so sexy. None of you bitches talk to him.
Yeah.
But he's parked outside of my house because Venice is very trailer friendly. They're just everywhere.
Totally.
So he's been
He
living
took
at
the spot that another camper was in before that.
I know. He's been living outside my home in his camper van, and I keep like, "Do you want to shower in here? Do you want to go to the bathroom? Do you want to do laundry?" And he's like, "I'm just very happy in my van." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's a Helix mattress in here. There's Buffy sheets. Like, you could use a bedroom." And he's like, "I like my van." And I'm trying to straddle this line of like, how often am I allowed to ask him to come over? And like, at what point am I like being too much? Like, yesterday I tried to be respectful. I waited for him to text me first at 8 a.m. because every day I want to send a you up text and be like, "Do you want to come over?" Like, where's the line? He like lives with me, but like he doesn't. He has his own home and it's next door.
Okay, Raina, but in his defense, it seems like that's what you would want. Ryan does listen to the show from time to time. His mom listens, and all you do is talk about you don't want men in this house. So it seems to me that he's trying to give you the best of both worlds where he is around, but he's in his own house. He's not leaving water bottles out and leaving toilet seats up and doing all the things that you've been complaining about since you moved in.
So true. But now he's here. I'm like, I have a buddy that's just like 2 feet away from me and I want them around all the time. And I'm like, where's the boundary? I don't know if I'm allowed. This morning I was like, I got you a burrito if you want to come over.
trying to lure him in with food.
Yes.
Yeah, earlier you were like, Ryan, I got you some berries. I'm like, where's my berries?
He came with me to the farmer's market yesterday to get those berries. I got him a burrito yesterday morning too. Actually, he paid for the burritos yesterday morning.
He's the most like doesn't want to be a bother and doesn't want to be in the way.
I know.
You know?
So I have to be like, please take a shower with me. It's not going to bother me. I don't want to bother him, but I'm like, it doesn't bother me. Sleep in any bed. Take mine.
That's so funny that you lure him in to take a shower and you're like, oh, only one shower's working.
That's so weird.
And I'm in it. I'm naked. Anyway. So
I want to know like where the line is. Like, am I allowed to just ask him to hang out? He was at the house the entire day with us today, and he went to leave, and I was like, "Do you want to go out to dinner with me?"
Yeah.
I don't know where the line is,
it's wonderful to be around.
yeah,
You guys are really good friends.
I don't want to assume just because he lives with me that he'll hang out with me all the time.
Well, the shower jogged my memory. We just said this thing you did that made me laugh so hard this morning.
Well, I've done a lot of things that have made you laugh pretty hard. I know. So
He made sure to tell me he was funny at dinner last night.
the tagline is, she goes, "Babe, you're really making me laugh," just to like validate me. But I'm like, I know,
Yes,
I'm
you made-
funny.
But this morning I like doubled over.
What'd you do?
I thought it was pretty average, but she was like,
It amazes me
crying.
when I say something that I don't think is that funny and she like loses it. I'm
Right,
like, I
same.
didn't even intend for it to be that funny.
right.
So it's because it's relevant. So last week we talked about Naked Attraction. My whole personality is this show.
and it really is.
And then I had him watch an episode last night. And so
Okay.
this morning,
So strange. I've never seen so many dicks in my life. It was
the premise of the show was like these guys, for example, are in these pods and then they lift up the front door of the pod to just show their dick. And so this morning we had showered together and then I got out and like I had to get ready to come over here. And he like was finishing up as I was like, you know, just putting my lotion on and stuff. And he was just like, babe. And he had the towel lifted up to right above his dick. And he was like, would you choose me? Like, it was so funny to me.
Answer it.
Like it was a great callback.
she like came over, like that show's
I
kind of weird.
inspected
They
it.
like
Yeah. I
they
was
move
like,
them around a little bit. They show you all the bits, and she came over.
They do?
Yeah.
They have to move their dicks and the balls around.
sometimes they will lift their dick up to show more of the balls if that's what the person who's picking
Right.
wants. But he was so
So
shocked at the
humiliating.
close-ups
It's
of like dick and
absurd.
vagina on this show.
You, like count the ingrown hairs on people. It's gross.
Wow.
It's a lot.
It's not gross. Bodies are beautiful.
Bodies are beautiful, yes, but like I don't want to see
But
that.
some are less
Right,
beautiful
you
than
don't wanna
others.
see those dicks like that.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
You like the vaginas?
Some of them were nice. Some of them were not very nice.
Yeah, they're all different.
Yeah,
Everybody's beautiful.
but some are more beautiful than others.
Correct.
Yes. That is so funny. You were like, look at my dick in this pod.
It was just he had this giant towel like holding up just right above. It was like very funny.
I thought you were going to tell me he helicoptered.
No.
he's not silly like that.
We're not in silly. That's yucky.
Yeah.
You get the ick.
No, you're a Boston person. Boston men are not silly.
We're just mean and we just scowl.
I
We
like
don't do anything
that. Yeah,
silly.
we like that.
He's the Grinch.
Perfect.
That's it. I just wanted to tell you about my dilemma of like how much am I allowed to ask him to hang out with me.
I mean, it's just been nice, like having him around. It's very funny. So this whole thing happened. We asked for emails and whatnot at the shows. Again, if you guys are coming to the holiday show, send in your emails. Not necessarily just like crazy stories that have happened to you once in your life, but if they're related to like someone you're with or they happened the night before, for example, things like that. We like you to roast your friends, your partner. Those are kind of what we're looking for. So this woman wrote in, she was like, I went on a date last night with a guy in a camper van. Like he picked her up in his van and we were like, oh my God, was it Ryan? And
because the way she described it, she was like, well, he made the plan at 7. He kept pushing it back to 8:30. And I knew the previous night that he kept pushing his plans back. Because he was outside of my house making burritos by himself.
So, like, spoiler alert, it wasn't him. But when we landed from San Francisco and we see the van, we die laughing, seeing it parked in front of your place. And he popped out before we even got to the door. And we were like, is there a girl in there? Be honest. It was just this hilarious thing. And that's like the video that I'd like sent to you. It's all full circle that you didn't get because you were lying
on
to
the
me
plane.
and keeping secrets. But yeah, it's just like, it's so funny.
I've been really enjoying this week. There's a lot of people around.
I know.
Which is crazy because I really think I like being alone. But when I'm around other people, I do enjoy it.
It's all I care about. I want to be where
know.
people are. Sorry, Little Mermaid's my favorite Disney
What
movie.
did you say? You like to be on your phone in the midst of other people being around you?
Well,
Like to
I just
ignore
like
people
people,
while people
around
are
me all
around
the
you.
time. So we've had a couple of times where I'm like working and I'm in bed and I'm like on my laptop, but he's like laying there next to me and I just feel like I feel better.
Yeah, I like that too. I do like that.
Yeah.
But I like to lay out.
What is a parallel play or something? Mike Johnson used the term, and we heard it before that too. I even feel like that sometimes where that's why I like to go work someplace sometimes, like
Totally.
outside of my home. Just like I'm not talking to anybody. I might have my headphones in. I'm fully like immersed in my work, but there's like people around.
Totally. I love that. I like
Yeah.
going to work in like an outdoor space with other people.
Okay, well, let's talk about our other partners and then we'll get into it with Vienna Day. We have such a great episode. We just wrapped our interview with her and it might hit you.
Really hit me a
in
lot.
the heart.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Bring some things up. So just, there's a warning for that. Okay, so I am going to tell you about Helix. Actually, I'd like to kick it to you. We just got you a Helix mattress.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's much better than the mattress I had before.
So you have the Midnight
Yes.
Lux,
Yes.
which is ranked the best for sex.
Well,
We'll
you
see.
haven't been back yet, so
Yeah, I'll
we'll
see in
what
2
goes on.
weeks.
But you're doing it on your Helix mattress.
Exactly,
In
yeah.
LA. How are you liking it?
It's great.
You had a mid-afternoon romp
We did.
on it.
Quite the romp.
Post breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just go to helixsleep.com/GGE, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners in honor of Black Friday. Go to helixsleep.com/GGE and use code HelixPartner25. Okay. So everyone in this room has Helixes.
There's nothing else that I've slept on in
Yes.
ages. I love it.
Yes. Huge fan of the Moonlight Lux, the Midnight Lux, and there are 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Lux Collection, and then this newly released Helix Elite Collection, which is even more elite. So there is a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers. My brother and his wife have that one, and there's even a mattress made for kids. So the way to figure out which one's for you, you just go take their quiz. It's like a fun little thing of how you sleep, your position, what kind of mattress you like, and it takes like 2 minutes, and they'll give you your personalized mattress. It'll be shipped straight to your door, free of charge, super easy, and they offer a 100-night trial and 10 to 15-year warranty to trial your new Helix mattress. So we really, really love it. Again, there is this newest, most high-end collection, the Helix Elite, but I mean, I have one from the Lux and I have just the regular Helix in my guest bedroom, and they're all amazing. So you really can't go wrong. They have harnessed years of extensive mattress expertise to bring their customers a truly elevated sleep experience. And again, the Helix Elite collection includes 6 different mattress models. Again, we've said this before, like they have 20 mattresses. I feel like that's the perfect amount. Like it's enough with enough choice to match everybody, but it's not too many. It's not overwhelming.
Totally.
I can rattle off all the names. Like we just really like know them and we love them. And we love the pillows too. They are the best pillows. I can't stress it enough. We are in so many hotels, nice hotels. It's like these nice feather pillows, and then you just sink into them. I have to do like 3 of them to prop my head up. Like their pillows are
They've ruined my life.
really.
so
I know.
good.
It's like I want to bring them on the road.
I know. I'm
When
like,
we got our
let's
family tour
put on
bus.
the tour bus.
Yeah, we'll have them on the tour bus.
Yes.
Helix is offering 25% of all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners in honor of Black Friday. Go to helixsleep.com/GGE and use code HelixPartner25. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now.
Yes. And last night, my dinner was Daily Harvest. The reason why it was late and I'd had a long day, but I did want to eat something like really nourishing and healthy, but I wanted it to be super quick. So Daily Harvest is like that thing. It is perfect for that. Also for breakfast, go to dailyharvest.com/GGE to get up to $65 off your first box. They really have so much. They have smoothies, forager bowls, lattes, flatbreads, soup. I'll tell you about some of the kinds that we really like, and harvest bowls. I just think so much is going on at this time of year too. There's so many events and parties, and you want to feel good, feel your best, but sometimes we just don't have time to make those type of meals. So everything from Daily Harvest is just frozen at like peak perfection. It's so delicious. There's so much variety, and you just take it out of the freezer and it really is ready in minutes. You can add a protein, you can make it into a soup, you can add eggs. I bulk them up, but really the size is mostly perfect for me.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
Tell me.
Wednesday, my box arrives. And I'm going to get that shakshuka that I didn't get to eat because it fell in my backyard.
All up in the gravel.
I'm so excited to eat that shakshuka. It looked so good. And I just was about to take my first bite and it went into the gravel.
I felt that in my body.
So I can't wait for my next shipment. And then the smoothie that I've been loving the most is the date and almond. I can't stress enough. I used to be that mint cacao bitch and I still love it. But the date and almond and the banana and almond and the strawberry and cashew.
Strawberry and cashew. Do you like the passion fruit and pineapple?
Yeah, I just have to be in the mood. It's really tropical.
I'm a tropical ass bitch.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the mango and papaya. I love the smoothies in the morning, the strawberry and peach. Ashley and I also love the harvest bowls. They're just so hearty. The chickpea and coconut curry is like my go-to. They have a great broccoli and cheese, red lentil and cumin. I mean, there's so much to choose from, and you can skip all the shopping, chopping, post cleaning up after you make a meal. I mean, it's really such a no-brainer. And all of their packaging is recyclable and compostable. So it's good for you and good for the earth. Did I say it weird?
No, I just started thinking about recycling. The way you winked at me, I hate you.
Me? That was a good wing.
It was a good wink.
You guys are going to love it. Ashley and I have been fans for years. Get the best of both worlds with Daily Harvest. Go to dailyharvest.com/GGE to get up to $65 off your first box. That is dailyharvest.com/GGE for up to $65 off your first box.
Okay, so we're going to get into it with Vienna. I wanted to tell everybody, I'm sure people are like, we want to see Sparkle Eyes in video. When he does his full episode, we will reveal the video, hopefully.
Great, I can't wait.
And that will be coming soon. We don't want to blue ball you guys. But.
Yeah, but if you want to watch us, youtube.com.
Yes.
YouTube.com.
YouTube.com.
Girls Gotta Eat. All the episodes, full video. We're also on TikTok. If you go to girlsgottoeat.com, all of our partners, all of our promo codes for the partners, every episode, everything's there.
Yes. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, guys, we are so excited to welcome back a guest, finally. She is a sought-after licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a speaker and author. She is the creator of the Instagram account Mindful MFT, boasting a community of over 700,000 followers, and the author of the national bestseller, The Origins of You, How Breaking Family Patterns Can Liberate the Way We Live and Love. Her new podcast is out now. This keeps happening. Please welcome back to the show, Vienna Pharaon.
I want to be introduced by you every day.
Everybody feels like that, and it's not an accident. We want people to go and be like, I am the shit. That's right.
Yeah, it feels good to hear.
You want me to introduce you?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe you could just start my days with...
She is my best friend and the baddest bitch there is. Please welcome to the show, Ashley Hazelton.
Your best friend is the number one credit.
She is Sparkle Eyes' girlfriend. Please welcome.
Who is here, by the way. Yes, well, welcome, Vienna. We're so excited to have you back. We had you right before COVID.
Yeah.
Right before the pandemic. Your life has changed.
My life has changed.
You're a mom.
I'm a mom. I had a kid. I know. We're out of the city now.
Yeah.
I know. Lots of changes, lots of shifts. I wrote a book.
Right. I was also like, let's talk about your
But it was like the
professional
birthing of, I mean, it was wild. I had a baby and then wrote a book 5 months postpartum.
Oh, wow.
Don't recommend it at all, but I did it. Somehow I got through, and there's a book out in the world that people seem to like. So it's good.
Here.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed reading it, The Origins of You, and we'll unpack it. And you have really great advice about just sort of how to reframe situations in your romantic life to have better outcomes based on how you were raised and what your original wounds were. We'll talk all about that.
Yeah.
We talked to you a little bit more about family last time. Like I was saying that I always find myself saving Vienna's Instagram posts, like, and not even looking at the handle before I look at the content, you know, and it's like, it's nice when I'm like, I love that. And then it's Vienna.
I was like, Ashley, can you send me all those posts you saved, please?
Yeah, I know. It's just like all these things. And then I like what you've been doing, where it's kind of like it's a video. It's like got some movement to it, and it's just like nice. It's like calming. Yeah, the whole aesthetic. I'm really into.
Just really working that algorithm.
I know.
They keep us on our toes over here.
Right. You're like, how can I make this static graphic into a reel?
Yeah.
You're doing it. You're really doing it.
Really doing it.
By the way, if people want to find your previous episode, it's December 16th, 2019, and it's really about family. We talked a lot about the holidays and in-laws and things like that. So go find that. But let's talk about the book and maybe the
motivation.
inspiration for why you wrote it.
Yeah. I mean, the book definitely was an extension of like my professional work, of course, but also I always say that therapists get into this line of work, whether we know it or not, to resolve that which is unresolved in our lives. And that's all of us, right? Like, we're like, okay, like I'm going to go be a therapist. And it's like, oh yeah, like you have stuff to work out. And I didn't really know it at the time. I was in school for psychology for undergrad. And then, you know, my parents went through what was a very long divorce process. It was the longest in the state of New Jersey at the time.
Remember that? It just came back to me.
Yes, it's in the book
like
too. And I was like, oh, right.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I had always been really curious about relationships and why certain ones work and why other ones don't. And from a very unevolved place, it was like, I definitely don't want to end up the way that my parents did. And I do say that lovingly, but it was like, it was my first education. It was the first template for everything of what I saw about conflict and communication and what love was and what intimacy was and wasn't and boundaries and all of that. And, you know, I didn't have the best education there. And I wanted to really try to safeguard myself because I didn't want to experience, you know, what they had experienced. I had experienced it as a kid, right, which was a very different perspective. But I wanted to try to figure out what was going to actually create, you know, long-lasting, fulfilling, expansive relationships. And so I went into grad school. I didn't know that I was necessarily trying to resolve this stuff, but I, in the beginning, I had a kick out of this. I was like, yeah, my parents' divorce didn't affect me at all. Like I was like clinging to that even in grad school. And I think it was so sweet that my professors and advisors and supervisors were like, in due time, you know, like she'll get there. And I really existed in this place where it's like, no, like we do holidays together now, which was true. And, you know, they had gotten to a much better place. And so I really held on to this story that they were like great friends. I had not been affected. All was good in the world. And that was the furthest thing from the truth. I think I had that perspective because it protected me from needing to feel. It protected me from needing to like go there and grieve and actually like witness what I needed to witness, what I had gone through. So just such a protective mechanism for me. But when I was working with, you know, now I've worked with over 25,000 hours of like individuals and couples and families. And I just kept seeing that the patterns in our adult lives now, right? The ones that we just like want to shake, the conflict that we keep getting into, the fact that we might keep dating and pursuing people who are emotionally unavailable, whatever the pattern is, if we can't shake it and drop it, it kept coming back to irresolution from the past. And I saw that in my own life too. There was a point in my like late 20s where I was dating someone and his ex came back into the picture and he was trying to decide whether to go back into the relationship with her, stay in the relationship with me. And like cue me coming in, I was like, totally, like, I really understand. This must be so hard for you. Yuck. Or like when I say it now, I'm like, oh, she was like, so, you know, it's like so painful to hear that part of me. And part of that is like who Vienna was. And also the therapist in me that's like context. Everybody's got a heart story. Like I get it. Right. And I could understand anything, but it was really connected to the little girl in me who had gone through what she had gone through and was like flying under the radar, pretending like she was fine with everything because there wasn't room for me to not be fine because my parents were so not fine. And so I really coasted through life. Like, I'm good. I'm fine. I was the cool girl. I was unaffected by everything. And I thought that that's what was attractive and what would keep relationships. And I didn't want to be a disruptor in any way. And I remember being in a conversation with a friend and it all just clicked in that I was in the same role that I had been in my entire life through childhood and, you know, before. And that I was still in this space where I was like, unaffected and fine when I was really bothered and hurt and in pain. It was really not something that was respectful of me. And it was such a big shift for me to say, and I finally did for the first time, to actually say like, I am affected. I am bothered. This is not okay for me. And I think for people who don't have a problem saying that, it probably sounds really simple. But for people who have never actually been able to say something like that, it was really life-changing. And that's not hyperbolic. It was like life-changing for me to be able to say, I'm not okay with this. And so full circle, right? Like I wrote this book because I know that, some people go to therapy, amazing. We love that. But we also know that so many people don't, or people want to do that in the privacy of their own homes, or they want to digest this information in a different way. And I wanted to write a book that anybody could read and hopefully find themselves in. And I really like to write through storytelling. And I think sometimes it is harder to see ourselves when somebody's just asking us direct questions. But sometimes when you read about somebody else's story, you're like, ooh, I see myself there, or I see my partner in this person. And so, yeah, I want people to kind of live into the life and relationships that they say they want, but we have to understand what's keeping us from it first. So that's what this book is about.
I mean, thank you for sharing that so much. We see that with people we know, and just this like refusing to admit to yourself that you were affected by your parents' divorce, for example, or whatever it may have been. And I've said to Raina, it's like, I think of this one person in particular where I just feel like he doesn't want to like rip open those wounds and bleed out, like to just be like in a gross metaphor. But it's like, I think people are like, I'm fine. I am in a good marriage. I'm
functional. I'm successful. Right. Like I'm okay in the world. And I think that is one of the scariest things is that if I'm going to go back there,
open it up,
I'm going to open up Pandora's box. What am I going to find? It's going to be so overwhelming. We have so many stories like our parents did the best that they could, or their parents were so much worse to them than how they were to me. Right? Like there's so many storylines that we can cling to. And whether those things are true, it actually doesn't matter because it becomes a distraction away from acknowledging our story. Right. And that piece is so vital, is like, no matter how much you can describe or explain away what happened, other people have it worse. My friends have it way worse than I do. I call it wound comparison. Those are distractions. Those are things that help us avoid actually being with what our story is.
It's interesting that somebody like you can even say, like, I wasn't affected by it, because the story that you opened the book with, you guys should read it, is basically that you had a lot of volatility in the home and a lot of screaming, and you opened the book with the story of how you and your mom were hiding from your father in this closet, and he was there with the police looking for you. And I feel like emotionally, like this child was like so terrified, and you corrected this by saying, like, I don't need anything. I don't need to be validated. I don't need to be heard. Your guys' problems are worse than mine. I'm never going to be the problem here. You guys have enough problems. And to think that that didn't affect you your entire life.
I know.
Is crazy. But you didn't even know that that was really a problem for you until a certain age.
Totally. Yeah. Like I had become so good at blocking that out and just protecting myself from it. And I think, of course, when you hear that story, you would hope that anybody would be able to have compassion for that child and think like, oh my God, that's so scary. That's undeniably going to affect this person. And I remember I share it in the book, this split where my dad is at the front door and I'm in the closet with my mom, and I'm like, I feel very split in that moment where I'm like, it's like, Dad, I'm here, but also Mom, I have to, and I think so many of us, right, we grow up in these family systems where we're just trying to figure it out, little humans, like, and sometimes our wounds come later in our teenage lives. You think about little humans just like, okay, like, how do I make everybody happy? How do I make sure that there's peace in the family? How do I like make sure that I fit in with you? Who do I need to be for you to like me and validate me and appreciate me and love me and be kind and calm around me, right? And we're constantly in this adaptation. If we don't have mature parents, right, we are constantly in a place of adaptation, and it's survival, right? Like there's this quote that I share, a friend and colleague of mine says that our pain and our gifts are next door neighbors. I love that thought, right? Because so many people are like, I wouldn't be who I am today without the story. And that, even though that is objectively correct, we're either going to be motivated by our pain or we're going to be motivated by our healing. We don't lose our gifts just because we heal. I can't emphasize how important it is for us to go back into these spaces and really like witness for me, it was witnessing the little girl who, really didn't have space to feel and not be okay. I didn't like, they might, if they were here, they'd probably say like, no, of course there was room for you to not be okay. It didn't matter what was true, right? My perception of the dynamic and the experience was that there wasn't room for me. And so I lived with that all the way through, and I had never made room for myself, right? And that was really the like catalyst and shift, was how do I make room for myself to actually feel what is truly there and like trust that I or someone else is going to be able to hold what that is.
So maybe you want to just define original healing work?
Yeah. So, okay. So the book is called The Origins of You. And why that title was like, for me, it's very important for us to understand the first time there's a rupture in our belief around our worthiness, the first time we don't feel like we belong, the first time we don't feel like a priority, the first time we don't feel a sense of trust, and a first time we don't feel safety. Emotional, physical, sexual, psychological, mental, right? And these first, to me, it sets the trajectory of our lives once there is a rupture in that.
Yeah.
And so some people will say, I don't remember the first, right? And if we have trauma, that's very common that you're not going to be able to remember like the why I respond this way. I don't know what the story is. Okay, that's fine. But you want to at least go back to the last or maybe the first time that you do remember. So even if you're like, I'm sure there's something earlier on in life, don't worry about it. Sometimes people get lost, like looking at age 4, 5, and 6 when it's age 17, you know, like sometimes you might have had a really safe upbringing, but the rupture in safety happened when you were 25, right? So I really want people, even though obviously my book is very focused on the family system that we grew up in, I still don't want people getting lost being like, oh, well, nothing happened in my childhood, so there must not be any wounding there. There is wounding there, no matter what your story is, no matter how great it is, because we have imperfect families, we have imperfect humans in our lives. They will let us down, they will disappoint us, they will hurt us, sometimes they'll harm us, and you know that's what we're having to really address. And so to me, it's like origin healing work is about reconnecting to whatever it is that you do have access to. And sometimes these ruptures will happen with an acute event, like a really big thing that breaks something. And for other times, it might be something where it's a repeated thing that keeps tarnishing it, right? So like, for example, a worthiness wound could come from a parent leaving, abandoning, and the way that you internalize it is that, okay, you left because I wasn't good enough for you to stick around. But a worthiness wound could also come from subtly realizing that your dad treats you very differently when you have performed well in sports, right? Like he's kind to you, he's giving you attention, validation, but when you're not performing well there, then he's cold or disconnected, right? And so a lot of times like it's like, where's the conditional love coming in or the conditional attention coming in, right? So I give those examples because sometimes it can be this big acute thing that happens and other times it's just like this thing that repeats over and over again that you internalize as meaning that I am only good enough when I am perfect. I'm only good enough when I'm pleasing. I'm only good enough when I'm performing. And when I'm not doing those things, I'm not valuable to people.
Or like that you have to earn their love.
Yeah. Like my dad, when I was a good girl and like behaved and showed up in the way that he liked, then he was really present and connected and helpful. But when I was difficult, and by difficult loosely, like being a teenager, it wasn't anything outrageous, I would get the silent treatment for days, weeks on end. And it was a really like hard form of punishment. And I think it was something where, you know, again, it reiterated that the love and the presence and the attention and the help was conditional based on how I was showing up with him.
Yeah. So there's 5 wounds that you sort of identify.
Yeah.
So what buckets are they in?
Okay. So the first one that I go over is the worthiness wound. So obviously it was just sharing a little bit about that. I'm convinced really that like, I think everybody probably has some.
I was just going to say, is that the most prevalent?
It is. I put out a quiz, a free, like, what's your primary origin wound quiz? And predominantly with the worthiness wound was number 1 for people. And yeah, like, I think there were over 40,000 people who had taken the quiz. It was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, this checks off. And so, yeah, like I was saying, for the pleasers, the perfectionists out there, the performers, the comic reliefs, you will often see a worthiness wound there where it's like the conditional part of the relationship is that if I'm pleasing you, if I am, you know, making you happy, if I'm perfect in the way that you see perfection, then I'm going to get connection, closeness, attention, validation, attachment, love, etc. If I am funny, then you stop hurting my sister. If I am quiet or non-confrontational, then you and mom stop arguing as much, right? And so it's just seeing where the worthiness, it really does tend to be in a lot of conditional relationships growing up.
Okay. I wonder if that's sort of like how I grew up. There was just a lot of screaming in my house and being told everything I did was terrible. And it didn't matter how much I like cleaned my room and did my chores and did my homework. And I was like a pretty good kid. I didn't really like do drugs. I wasn't having sex. But like there was always something wrong with me. There was always like something to pick on and tell me that like things that I didn't even realize were wrong with me were also wrong with me.
Yeah.
So it was just very stressful because I was just like, all right, what am I going to get hit with next?
Yeah, right. Constantly waiting for that to happen. And I think like statements of harm, which obviously can fall under, a safety wound too with, verbal abuse or something like that. But you will find that in worthiness too, because it's like, why can't I be good enough? Like no matter what it is that I'm doing, you're finding something wrong with it. And so I'm just not a good enough kid, a good enough this, a good enough that. And it really like, I don't know what your experience was, but I think it wears people down. And yeah, like how we relate to our worthiness in the world and like how we see ourselves as valuable. Yeah, it's tarnished.
The conditional love thing is interesting. I watched Hassan's most recent both special. I want to get it. Hassan Minaj. Like it's like
I love it.
Minaj like Nicki, but it's Hassan, not Hassan.
Right.
Anyway, so Hassan's special, and he just the first special. Homecoming King is a lot about like immigrant parents feeling like you have conditional love. And it's funny, but it's really, there's truth in it. And I feel like a lot of children of immigrant parents have that feeling. And there's so much comedic content about it.
Yeah.
But there's still that part of like, it's just different when parents come to America and they have all these expectations of you and you feel like you have to do these things to earn their love. And
right. And it's like, what is the impact for each person, right? Like, how does it get internalized? And I also think the contrast, especially when you have immigrant families, because now they're moving, right? And so now you're seeing yourself in comparison. So if you've moved to America, let's say, right, it's like you are around American families. It's like when you see the contrast, right, of like, oh, this is what it's like here culturally. I was just having a conversation with somebody else who moved. When she came to America, she saw how all of the American parents were with the children. It was so different than what her culture was. And I thought that it was interesting to be like, oh, the contrast in the culture when you see it so clearly, right, is like what that communicates to you and then how you internalize it.
I think it's so interesting you're saying like intention versus impact, because the intention there is have a better life than I had.
Yes.
Be successful. Money brings happiness.
Yeah.
So find happiness through money and success, but the impact is often very different.
This is such a perfect setup though there's one client that I share in the book, and it's in the prioritization chapter. And this is a perfect example because he has a single mom who's working multiple jobs, and the time that they get together is they go to church on Sundays and then they get to have brunch afterwards. And he loves and respects his mom so much, right? She is working so hard in order to give him a better life than she had, right? And he can sit there and he can rationalize this week after week after week. And the love and respect is so clear to me. But what was still there was a lack of prioritization, the way it is internalized for him, right? And so, yes, he could sit here and be like, well, but the way that she's working all of these multiple jobs, like that is her way of prioritizing me. True, right?
Right.
And I still wanted to feel prioritized by having more time with her.
Totally.
Period.
Yes.
That's
both things are true.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like when you can start to hold the multiples, right? Like really what we call the both and, right? Is like when you can do that, which I think is very important for this work, because we're not here to bash parents. We don't have to hate them. We don't have to throw them under the bus. We don't have to villainize them. We don't have to walk that path, but we do have to hold, context, right? Because they were tiny little humans once before too, who have a complicated history. We're sure of that. And also adults who misstepped and impacted us. And that's the key, is like finding that perfect middle space of, you're a human with a history and a story. I can hold and respect and see a lot of those pieces. And I'm a human with a story who needs to heal too, right? Who has to be able to acknowledge the pain that is there. Because if I can't, then I can't move forward, right? And then the patterns, right, keep coming. So back on track.
Worthiness, which everyone is probably like, God damn it, that is me.
That is me. Yes.
Everyone's feeling this. They're crying in their car.
Belonging. Second wound. A lot of families have this feel to them. I don't know if you grew up this way, where your family was like, this is how we do things. This is like how we operate. This is what we believe. This is how we act in the world. And sometimes we feel that more significantly and sometimes we don't, right? But it's like, if you don't act or think or behave or look or be in the way that we are and we do, then you're out. Right. And whether the outness is like actually a pure rejection of the child, or whether it's more subtle and, passive aggressive, right? But there's a real like requirement of adaptation there that happens to fit in with the family.
It's like the example to me is, as someone who like spent a lot of time in the South, is like that type of family, this very like Southern traditional, white, straight, Christian, everything, like this is how we do things. This is how we present ourselves. This is how we act. This is what we believe in.
Yes.
This is what our politics are. This is the age you're supposed to get married and start a family and where you're supposed to live. And like, and then someone tries to buck against it and it's like,
Be a gay person.
right, exactly. Move to New York City.
Right.
Become a Yankee.
Yes.
It's like this, well, you're not accepted because this is not the way we are.
This is not who we
That's
are.
just
This
like an
is not
example
what
that
we
comes to mind because I lived in that world.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of it. And maybe you're familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate, and he talks about how, like, for kids, basically our two lifelines are attachment and authenticity.
Okay.
Right? And if attachment is threatened, we will trade authenticity every single time because survival, right? We must, right? So what happens is we lose our authenticity in order to have a safe base, right? In order to have our secure, quote unquote, attachment. And so we become a little less than, or a little more of this, or a little bit of that in order to fit into the system, right?
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times the black sheep of the family, for example, is someone who'd be like, I have a belonging wound, right? Like anybody who's ever felt othered. And, obviously this is also culturally important too, right? It's like, when people feel othered, when people feel different, it doesn't always generate from the family system, but it absolutely can. And so if there's anybody who's like, I feel so different, I feel othered, I don't feel like I fit in with anyone, right? I am the black sheep. Oftentimes we're going to find a belonging wound there.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
This is painful.
No, I feel it in my stomach. I know a lot of people that like fit into these, but we all do.
Totally. Of course. I mean, all of us, right? Like all of us have either one or multiple wounds. I have people who are like, is it possible to have all five? Yes, you can. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the prioritization wound, what it sounds like, but you're going to see that with maybe a parent who was a workaholic, maybe that there was a ton of conflict in the family. And so the conflict became the focus. Maybe you grew up with a sibling who had mental health challenges and the parents were really focused on the sibling, or there was an illness in the family. A lot of times with these wounds, it doesn't have to be because our parents and the adults in our lives were like malintended and awful, right? Like sometimes it's just circumstantial, right? Like sometimes it happens because like a parent has cancer and that's the focus. And so you as a kid don't get a lot of the attention, or you're not able to be prioritized in the way that you would have liked to, or the way that you would have needed to. And I think that's important to realize, like, we're not just like, these enemy adults in our lives who are awful, right? Like it's circumstantial at times and we can still be left with these wounds, right? Addiction, that can be the priority in a family's life, and the child isn't getting the, time and attention, that they need. So prioritization wound. Okay. Sometimes you'll see that present day, like if you are someone who tries to prioritize everyone, people are like, what does it look like in adult life? Right. And it can be like, you keep
how it looks in adult life.
Yeah. It's like you keep choosing people who don't prioritize you. Maybe you had an alcoholic parent and now you've chosen someone who, like, I don't know, plays video games every night for hours and hours, and you don't feel prioritized in the relationship. Or you become someone who just prioritizes everyone around you as a way to try to get them to prioritize you.
Sure. I've seen this with a couple people I know with their siblings, had some pretty serious mental issues growing up. And so, yes, by comparison, that sibling needs a lot more, but it doesn't stop you from feeling like, but I'm here too.
But
I'm here
too. You don't know as a kid. How are you supposed to know as a kid? Like, that's the thing. Like, your brain isn't formed enough to realize that. So all you know is that you feel less prioritized and you don't understand why.
Right. And you probably wouldn't have those words for it at the time.
Right.
But I think what is so important about all of this is like these wounds, if we don't go in to acknowledge them, then the pain in the wound finds clever ways to present us again and again and again with, it might be different relationships, different scenarios, right? Like the context of what you might be going through is going to be different, but it's going to keep pointing you back to the irresolution around the wound.
We talk about like how two things can be true at once. Like, my sibling might have needed more actual attention than I did, but that didn't mean that my needs ceased to exist.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
And when we're kids, we just survive our way through it. You know what I mean? Like we just get to the other side. We're not sitting there being like, it's time for me to grieve that my parent couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we just white knuckle our way through.
Go to a liberal arts college, you move to New York like a normal person.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Trust. So when there is deceit, betrayal, lies, family secrets are a big one. There's a lot of family secrets that, get withheld when information is withheld. But the betrayals, right? Like obvious ones could be affairs, infidelity that happens in a family. Sometimes the trust rupture isn't directly to you, but it might be something that you're observing. So I've had clients where they've told me that a parent has taken out credit cards in their name, or, they've used their information for their own benefit, or somebody who's gambled away a college fund, like things like that, where there's a betrayal that happens or deceit that happens, or you find out later that, and these are extreme cases, of course, but a client where her mother wasn't actually her mother and her aunt was, and there was like a flip of those things, and these family secrets that come out. And, we have these massive ruptures in our lives that make us really question whether or not we can trust people or like the people who are meant to hold our best interest and protect us in mind. I always say with a trust wound and a safety wound, they often go hand in hand because it's hard not to have safety ruptured when there's a trust rupture and vice versa. And it often creates hypervigilance in the person, right? So if you have a trust wound or a safety wound, you will often exist in the world hypervigilantly, like constantly like scanning. It could be with an emphasis on control. It can be you having to like search or look over your shoulder. You're constantly waiting for the second shoe to drop, right? It's like you are in a state of scanning your environment and looking out for what you think is going to ultimately be a
so just
betrayal.
You are more distrustful. It usually manifests in that way.
It can be. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. Okay. And then yes, with safety, even though I grouped it in a little bit with trust, right? Like when we're talking about a safety wound, we are often talking about the presence of abuse. So it's a tender chapter. And, I tell people to take good care of themselves when they're reading that, but we have to look at, physical, sexual, psychological, mental, emotional, financial abuse, negligence, recklessness, and, growing up in environments where you were put in situations that I always think about the absence of safety is like your well-being, your overall safety. Somebody's not actually thinking about protecting you and making sure that you're, respected and protected.
And then, is security like a synonym essentially? Just like I picture maybe there was a single parent, for example, that, you're always moving around, moving from place to place, like renting here, renting there, trying to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck. You're going to a different school every year, like that lack of like security.
Yes.
Is that like
security and stability.
And stability,
absolutely.
Yes, too.
I had a partner that grew up with extreme abuse, and I remember Ashley saying to me, because I was like, I don't understand how he acts in situations. And she was like, you and I don't start from a baseline of not feeling safe. And so like it is interesting when you become an adult and you meet a partner like that, because you're like, your baseline for just feeling safe day to day in the world, emotionally, physically, is not the same as mine.
Right.
Yeah. I had a partner in my past as well that just a lot of that. And he grew up very like people pleasing, need to be a good kid. He never really got in trouble. And it was like just that constant, like I have to be a good boy, I have to be like a good kid, and then it like really came out a lot later in life. And it was just like the floodgates opened,
Yeah.
And I think he was someone that didn't think he was as affected as he was. And then he would tell me stories and I would be like in tears, like thinking about like the little boy that had to deal with this like abuse, trauma, lack of security. And, his one parent who raised him, like never wanting to say a bad word because they did the best they could. It was like all the things you're saying. And it was a really strained relationship. It was really tough. I did not have the tools to handle it at that time. Yeah. I just wasn't equipped. I was triggering him constantly, and then I'm like walking on eggshells. I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah. It can also feel really easy to feel controlled in a relationship like that.
Yeah. So obviously it didn't work out, but
Is this the last one?
We went through.
Okay. We went through the 5.
Okay, so let's just say them again.
Worthiness, belonging, prioritization, trust, and safety.
Emotionally and physically. Okay. So the next sort of part of the book, the bulk of the book, is original healing practice and this 4-step practice, and how you can kind of look beyond your presenting problems, see the real issues at play, and make better decisions. So that's really broad. We all have a million issues as adults and in relationships, but maybe we can just start to talk about this concept and changing your relationship behaviors?
Yeah. So in my work, I have never seen people heal without naming where our pain is, without witnessing that pain, without grieving. Like those things, they have to be a part of this work. And then we have a chance to pivot. That's what I call it with the 4 steps. And I believe that the way that we heal is as many ways as there are humans on the planet, right? Like I'm not somebody who's like, you fit into this structure and these are the things that you do. And then when you get to the other side of this, like you're going to be healed. Like that's not what I believe. But what I can tell you is that these parts have got to be a part of it. And if you are not looking at your family of origin and your family, like that to me, when I hear people who are like, oh, I've been in therapy for 5 years and like I've never talked about my family, I'm like, oh,
Fire your therapist.
You know, really, you're just like, wait, what? That's
all I talk about.
Right? It's like,
What do you mean? That's a crazy statement. Sorry, but that's wild.
right? It is wild. And there are plenty of people who have, and it's like, this has to be a part of the conversation. So we have to name the wound. We cannot minimize it. We cannot invalidate it. We have to stop with that everybody has it worse than I do, or they did the best that they could. Like all of that, we can hold those things, team, right? Like absolutely the both and, but you also have to name where your pain is without distorting it. It's a must. So the second part is the witnessing. And when I was growing up, when my parents were separated, I would listen in on their phone conversations. And sometimes I would pick up the phone and listen in. And sometimes I'd like perch myself at the top of the stairs and try to get a sense of what was going on. And that was important to me because they both would tell very different stories. And so I really wanted to understand like what the truth was, right?
Wow.
And I remember needing to really close my eyes and think of myself at that age. And I usually picture me at like 7, 8, 9. And it was so important, like for the witnessing piece. And, you know, people can do this differently, but I do like to close down my eyes. And I usually lead people through a process where they close down their eyes and they sort of visualize that age of themselves, whatever it is that comes to mind. And usually people have like a spot where they're like, yeah, I usually think of myself at 10 or 6 or whatever. And I just would close my eyes and get closer to her, like watching her on the top of the steps, perched there as a little girl, listening to what she was listening to. And it was just bringing a lot of compassion to myself for having to go through that. You know, like really just witnessing what that must have been like for a little girl who was really confused and scared and overwhelmed by what she was hearing, and that she should never have been in that position, you know? And I think there's something to just seeing it from self to self, but as the observer, do you know? And I remember like I had to do that over and over and over again. And when I talk about grieving, it's the authentic, natural expression of the emotion that just comes forward when you do that practice. And so sometimes you cry, sometimes you don't, sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're not, right? Like it can look a lot of different ways, but it's a release of emotion that is authentic when you are actually in the act of witnessing what it was like to go through that origin pain. And, you know, that is so important because people come into therapy because they're like, here's what's going on right now. And like, it needs to change usually, right? People aren't, sometimes they'll come in and be like, there's this thing from very long ago that I really want to process. But most of the time people are coming in because they're in a rock bottom moment. They've just gone through an ending of a relationship. They're in a conflict that they can't, you know, get through, whatever, right? And so they're focused on present day. And to loosen present day, we really have to just have this historical information of self. And if you're in a relationship, of the other person, right? Like we have to understand our inside worlds. And when we do that, we have such a better chance at moving through communication differently, moving through conflict differently, moving through boundaries differently, and just like navigating our relationships in a much better way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You're like, prove it.
No, I love that.
No, because you talk in the book about the presenting problem.
Yes.
And that's not often like the real issue. And I like the phrase, the presenting problem. Okay. So then the next
Then
step
what?
in the process would be.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, I kind of like put them all together actually,
Okay.
right? Because so yes, you have to name, identify what the pain is, what the wound is. You then need to witness. Okay. Then third is grieving. And then fourth is pivoting.
Okay.
And the pivot, you know, the very well-known quote that's attributed to Viktor Frankl about like between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, there's this opportunity to like essentially walk ourselves towards freedom.
Okay.
And the work of identifying, witnessing, and grieving is it gives us more space in the pause. So when we're in the conflict, when we're in the pattern, when we're choosing something or acting in a certain way, when we have done the work of naming our pain and witnessing it and grieving, it extends our ability because we're not just in this reactive place anymore, right? We've done so much work to extend where we're like, oh, I know what's familiar about this moment.
Yeah.
Because when we don't know what's familiar about the moment, then we're just in a power struggle, then we're just proving our point, then we're just needing to be right. We're racing to that, right? Instead of racing to like, what's familiar about this? What do I know about this? I'm activated in this moment because there's something historical here. And also for my partner or a friend or a colleague or whomever I'm having the thing with. And so when we do this work, it extends that space so that we can behave differently, use our words differently, navigate conflict differently, choose a boundary that we normally wouldn't place or lift a boundary that we'd normally have way up too high, right? And so like all of this work helps us in those moments where we're trying to do the thing differently than we would do it before.
Right.
So I guess the pivot is the most interesting thing to me because you wrote this thing in the book. When you notice you're falling into old patterns, get into the habit of asking yourself certain questions so you can process what's happening in a different manner than you usually do. It's no longer good enough to know why you chose the same type of partners over and over or know why you react the way you do. So like, I guess like, how do we pivot?
Yeah.
And should we use like a couple of these scenarios?
Yeah.
But also like, I love that you pulled that quote because it's so true. And I say it so lovingly, but like knowing why you do what you do, like,
Right.
we don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, you can't be like, oh yeah, like I am this way because my dad treated me, you know, X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, those connections of the dots are really important. But guess what? If you keep treating your partner this way, you might not have a partner. You know what I mean? Like it makes sense, but now we have to become accountable, right? Like our behavior and their behavior, right? We now have to become accountable to it. If I give an example, I think this will be very helpful. In the beginning of my relationship with Connor,
I was jumping really quick. I just want to say for people listening that I think that'd be fun for them to connect the dots if they don't know that Connor Beaton, who's been on the show twice, is your husband. That's all I wanted to say.
Perfect.
There's
Well, I was thinking it's weird I haven't brought it up.
I was going to do it at the end because I'm just like, I want people listening to be like, oh my God, how cool. Like there's definitely people that don't know that. And now they're like, yeah, and he's had two
They'll connect
incredible
the dots.
episodes that were like, you know, they're top downloads inside the male mind 1 and part 2. So anyway,
amazing.
Go ahead.
So, okay, in our relationship, this was before we were married. We were in a conflict. I don't know what we were fighting about, but I kept like going and needing to prove my point and needing to be right. And he would like bless him because he was like, I got it. I understand. You know, like he got it. And I just doubled down and tripled down. And I just kept going. And I had this out of body moment where I was like, oh my God, being like, shut up. You know, like he's already excited, like enough.
Yeah.
Eventually it stopped. And then I entered into a little bit of a shame spiral and was like, oh, like that was really unattractive. And I don't know if you don't want to be with me, you know, like just all of the questioning. I moved out of the shame space very quickly though, and replaced it with curiosity. What does it serve for me to be right? What about being right is protective? Okay, little bit of digging work. It doesn't take very long. I grew up with a father who was, you know, really manipulative with my mom and like gaslit her constantly. Never did it to me, but it was something that I observed over and over and over again. And it was very crazy making for her. And I watched this day in and day out. And what I realized was that for me, being right, he was always right, she was always wrong, right? Being right meant safety. You know, it was control, it was power, but it really was about feeling safe because feeling crazy, right? I saw its impact on her and that was unsafe. And so for me, it meant that if I was wrong, it would mean that I was unsafe. And if I was right, it would mean that I was safe. And that was so important for me to understand. And it's like what you're pulling at is that, guess what? I can't just keep being right in every relationship. Like I can't just keep proving my point constantly and invalidating other people because that's not going to go very far. But I also can't just sit here and be in shame about how I'm acting. I have to get curious about like, no, this behavior makes sense if I have the context and I understand the story. And when I can understand that story and then I can spend some time doing the witnessing and grieving of it, then I can choose to engage with people differently. And that's why it's like to know is not enough, right? To know why I'm that way. Great. It lit off some light bulbs and that was fantastic. And it was a really important conversation for Connor and I to have, but it was also not enough because the pivot and the behavior needed to happen. So I appreciate you pulling that.
For you, it's important to know, but for your partner, it's like, yes. And
right.
Like, who cares why you're like, well, I don't want to be treated like this. I didn't do that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, Connor speaks so highly of you. You have a great marriage, but I think as me as the partner, I'm like, well, I understand why you don't feel safe.
Yes.
But like, why am I being punished for that? And how can I react better to this?
Yeah. Like that was the thing with an ex of mine. It's like, it was great that he could
Yes.
identify why he would lash out at me, but it can't just, how do we
Right.
fix
It doesn't end there.
Yeah. Like that's the first step.
Yes. Look, it helps to know these things because it does give us compassion for,
of
the people in our lives. But absolutely, it's like we have to start to shift, and knowing is not enough. The doing is what allows us to write new endings. And, it's like I get to have the life or the relationships and engage in these relationships and life in a way that is different than I've been doing. All of these things are self-protective. All the behaviors that we do, they're all self-protective, right? So we know that they're still protecting something. That's the quest. What are you still protecting? Because that's the thing that needs more care and attention. And when we can give it more care and attention, then we don't have to protect it as vehemently. If we don't have to protect it as vehemently, then we don't have to behave in these ways that we've learned are protective, but also generally really disconnected.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think, not really much of the wounds resonate with me. I'm not really trying to brag. I just have a really secure, my parents are really wonderful. I felt really secure, but I almost felt like I just had like my dad and their relationship and just on such a pedestal, like to the point of like perfection. And, I would say that I probably wounded them more. I always joke that I don't have daddy issues, but my dad has daughter issues. Like it just was like really tough. But like, I think for so long, it just was like my expectations were so high and I was like unwilling to ever let anyone let me down and everything had to be perfect. And I think that over the years, I really had to realize that like my dad's not perfect. I mean, they have a wonderful marriage, but she's opened up to me and about some things that I'm like, yeah, that's not great. And, they've been married for 45 years. They have ups and downs, but I think that just realizing like people are human, as am I. You can't hold people to such a high standards. I just feel like my expectations were a little too
Your expectations are high. You grew up with a really wonderful family. I mean, nobody's family is better than yours, but you have a high level of perfectionism. You like to be right.
Yeah.
You do not want to have words put in your mouth. You know exactly what you want all the time. Like you have a level of like stability that you like. And maybe that's because you grew up with like such a wonderful family life. You're just like, I know what perfection looks like and I like it.
But it was almost, I felt for a while, like to a fault,
Well, it also sounds like there was a time where you were really inflexible with it too.
Right. Yeah.
It almost makes it so that you have to be really controlling of other people, where it's like, unless you are this way, then it's not good enough.
Yes. I have worked on, I feel like it doesn't feel like that now.
Yeah.
But I think, we all realize things about our family and, where you're like, okay, yeah, my dad's a human. He's not a superhero, and it was just kind of like, he never let me down. So like a boyfriend better not ever not show up, not let me down, not be the perfect man that everyone's like, that's Lee Hasseltine. Like, I don't know. So it was just like,
no, it's a great example because I think there's other people who maybe feel similarly to the way that you do. And when I have these conversations with people who, and like, surprise, like, guess what? There are some really good families out there. It's like, not everybody has to have this, awful, terrible story, but I think sometimes it is around I want the relationship that I saw, or it is put on such a pedestal. And I think when there is something that is put on a pedestal, it means that we are beneath it and we're trying to get up there. And it's like, am I good enough unless I have a similar relationship to the one that my parents do?
Right.
And so to think about the ways in which it was internalized, and then how do we treat people in our quest to get there?
Yeah.
Right.
If someone like makes a quote unquote mistake.
Yeah. There's no tolerance for it.
Yes, exactly. Like a lack of tolerance, I guess, in general.
You saw your dad at a certain level, and then your brother also followed suit. Your brother's like a very stand-up guy and a wonderful husband. Do you think it's hard because you look at other men in relationships and you're like, well, it was easy for them? Like, do you feel like it has dropped your tolerance level for other people because you're like, the people around me are wonderful?
That's what I'm saying. Like the bar was really high. Like it was just kind of like, you can't fuck up around me. I'm not saying that that's what I felt, but I've come to realize like in my past, that was like what was happening here was like the red flags like fly up the second I feel like someone isn't showing up or doing what they say they're going to do. And I still have a high bar for it. And I'm with a wonderful partner who just makes me feel secure and shows
talking
up
about me.
and
But I mean, we say all the time, it's... We say all the time
too. I'm really lucky. I'm really blessed.
We say about each other all the time. Like one of the most important things in our business is when somebody says they're going to do it, they do it. They do it the highest possible level of their ability. Like that is what keeps us feeling secure in this relationship too.
But I don't want to be, Rain and I have dealt with this too as a partnership. Like, I don't want to be this person. Like, you can't fuck up around me. Like everybody fucks up. Like everybody makes mistakes. We're all human. We go through tough times. Like, I just have really had to loosen the reins, realize this about myself, realize it like where it comes from, and adjust.
One of the things that's so important for all of our relationships is learning and knowing and trusting that we can go through hard things together. I think sometimes when you grow up in a family system where you don't have to go through hard things that much, like you don't learn that, you don't necessarily know how to get through the disappointment, and where you learn like, okay, there's some flexibility here. And yes, people are human. And yes, there is a way to get through a hard thing with this person and get to the other side. And I think sometimes it's not about like, oh, we should set your bar really low, but there is something about flexibility and tolerance that is really important, of like trusting that we can go through hardship, because there will be hardship that comes, and hopefully not a lot of it, but you are going to face chapters in life where things will be more challenging than, they have been. And so I think that's, it sounds like you've had really good reflections about what the impact actually of the absence of that is on the way that you have expected people to show up in your life.
Well, that's interesting because, Rain and I talk about people who just have never really had any problems. And I would say also like some of my stuff is from just being younger, feeling like boys didn't like me, or feeling insecure about my looks or things like that. I think like those things always still come up. But Rain and I talk about people like go through life. They've always been attractive. They've always been good at sports. They've always been well liked. Nothing's better happened. No parent, nobody's ever died. Like we're like zero hardship. Like nothing's ever been a challenge. And it's like, how, when something does happen, are you equipped to deal with it?
Right.
Like really, like we talk about that. And also we feel like it doesn't really make you that interesting dynamic of a person.
Really empathetic.
But you're really not prepared for something tough.
Totally.
At least you can look at hardships, like you said, is like, at least I'm prepared for real life
to move through this stuff. And also like, I mean, just picking on what you just said though, what I was saying, of course, is like we look in the family system, but we also look outside of it, school, sport, it's like coaches and teachers and other kids. And like, so when you were saying maybe feeling a little insecure growing up, it's like that has an impact, right? Even though you might have felt really loved and secured and all the things within your family of origin, like you might have struggled with something elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And that might be for some listeners too.
We talk about this all the time, like the way your friends made you feel, or that you weren't well liked enough, you weren't pretty, and you just like all this stuff sticks with you.
Yep.
As soon as you said authenticity versus assimilation, I thought about high school girls. And it's just like everything that you wanted to do, I think a lot of girls prioritize being popular over those things. Like my hobbies are nerdy, I just won't do those things. Right. Reading a book isn't cool, I just won't read books.
Yes.
I just want to be pretty. Let me starve myself until I'm a size 0 so I can fit in with the pretty girls, and it doesn't matter what you want to do. Assimilating is what's important.
That's so true. Like I quit band because it wasn't cool. And like, I like threw my flute into the tree so I wouldn't have to bring it to band practice. And like, they were calling the house, and I finally was like, it was this huge fight in the house, like that I was quitting this thing that I was so good at because it wasn't cool. And not that I, today I don't wish I played the flute, but like there's things like it wasn't cool to be smart when I was a kid. I like really wanted to not do those gifted classes. At one point I told my mom I was like quitting. She's like, the fuck you are. You like, she didn't say it like that, but like those things, though. Like thank God she made me stay in it. Like, I think some of that stuff is cooler now, but when we were growing up, it was not cool if you were a nerd, if you were really smart, or if you were in the band and all this stuff. And so I really just gave it up for that.
Totally. I had no interests or hobbies in high school, and that's not because I didn't have them.
Right.
Like I grew up, my mom would always say, you used to really like pottery class and all these classes you go to the museum. I would take these art classes where I'd walk around the museum and learn about the paintings. And I had zero interests in hobbies in high school besides like looking pretty and boys.
Yeah,
and that is it, because it wasn't cool. And I don't know if I even identified it as not being cool. I just was like, that's not what my friends are doing. That's not what I'm going to do.
Well, it's not safe enough to do it.
Yes.
Right. And it's not safe.
It is for some kids. And I think today
it is different.
It is.
I think kids have a whole other thing to deal with social media. So it's like, what's actually worse? Probably
today is worse.
Today. Yeah. All right. We've veered off, but I mean, we want to still apply this more to
maybe like a couple concepts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you pulled some quotes, patterns. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we pulled from your Instagram is just talking about finding partners where you put the other person on the pedestal and both people feel like they're the lucky one, or like being afraid to pick a partner where you feel like you're the lucky one?
Okay. So 2 pieces, because I want to be careful about the pedestal word, just because I had recently...
Can be negative.
Yeah. I had recently said something about like when we put somebody on a pedestal, we're not revealing our admiration for them. We're revealing our insecurity within ourselves. And the quote that you're talking about, though, is like, it is right about admiration and respect. When you think like, you know, you look at your partner from across the room and you're like, yeah, like, how did I get you? Right. And not from an insecure, shame-filled place, just from a place of like respect and admiration. And I find that the people who both feel that way about each other, there's something so beautiful, because it's like, oh, I earned you, like, you know what I mean? Because it's our partners are such a reflection back to us in many ways. And I know that can feel very confronting to hear for some people.
It's a reflection to the world of yourself too.
Yes. Right. And like, listen, of course I know that there are complications and there's a lot of layers in some relationships that can make it really hard to exit or, you know, remove yourself from it. But I think these moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I admire you and I respect you so much. And I like, what? I got you?
I feel so lucky. Yeah.
It's like, I feel so lucky. It's so beautifully said. And I think to have that feeling, I mean, it's like, you're not going to feel that every day of every moment of, you know, you're like, obviously, but to overall have that feeling where you're like, yeah, respect, admiration. I think that that's huge.
I think your Instagram said like, you feel like the other is a little bit out of your league, but the quote that I've always said is like, where both parties feel like the lucky one. And
I love that.
I think it's a scary thing for a lot of people though, because I think to feel like, oh my God, like I can't believe you picked me. Like, I think it's a scary place to be if you don't feel confident.
It's a scary place to be because so many people got the advice from someone at some point that said, don't be the one who loves the most.
Be with somebody who loves you more than you love
Which is be with somebody who puts you on a pedestal only, right? And that's not good advice. It's not good advice.
I think it's gotten distorted.
It's gotten distorted.
There's this thing of like, if you're in a straight relationship, the man should love the woman a little bit more. But I think it's gotten taken out of context because I see what that means too. You know, to an extent, but like not this like pedestal word, like all, that's
but
just kind of blown out of
we're
proportion.
not a society that uses nuance well.
Right, exactly.
So we got to be really careful with our words. We hold something back and we think that only if somebody likes me more than I like them or loves me more than I love them, will I be safe in this world. And I think that that piece of it is that is what is difficult and challenging because you're withholding something and it's a power dynamic. And you know, you're not going to be able to have the type of relationship that I think is important for us to have, which is equal and
vulnerable.
So if you're the kind of person that's like, I have trouble seeking out somebody that I'm really proud of, that I feel like I'm so lucky to have gotten them. Where does that kind of come from, and how can we like have self-talk? Because that's the goal. That's the bar. Is that you should be with somebody that you both feel like, I can't believe I did this.
Like we talked about this with you. Like, isn't that the thing your mom says? You like always just choose people who
are a little bit beneath me. She says.
Okay.
I'm afraid to seek out people. She says, and she's always said like that are a little beneath you, and I think that she means like that aren't on the same career level. That you're not. I always say like the most important thing to me is to be inspired by somebody that I'm with, but I don't necessarily always pick people like that. It is an important thing to me, but I think I am a little afraid to not be the alpha in terms of like career success and money. I'm worried that like maybe somebody will be like, well, she's just not pretty enough for me, or she's just not whatever, you know?
I mean, listen, there's almost always a worthiness element that's present when we feel like we can't like reach for someone, right? Where we avoid being the person that we think is going to be in the one down position. So I think that reveals a little bit of a worthiness piece, but also what you were just saying is like, you have created some form of safety for yourself by being financially successful and independent and, you know, like being in the alpha position and maybe not needing to like rely on someone in any way, right? It doesn't have to just be financial, but I think that part that has like protected yourself from needing someone so that if somebody leaves or exits, like you're okay.
Yeah, I think it hurts a little less maybe to be quote unquote rejected by somebody that you were like, well, that probably wasn't going to work out anyways for XYZ reason.
Yeah, it's
rather than being rejected because somebody's like, she wasn't good enough for me.
Yes, but that's what I mean is like the decisions and behaviors are all protective.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
And like, that's the protection is that, okay, if this relationship ends for whatever reason, but you weren't that great, like then I'm not as hurt by it. But if it was someone I really loved and I really went for and went all in and was super vulnerable and really wanted to see this through and it ended, like that would be much more heartbreaking and I think challenging, right? So it's like sort of the protection of something.
Just talked about this.
Yeah.
We just did this whole episode on why you choose emotionally unavailable people
Yeah.
because it's so much easier when you can run the tape and be like, well, it was doomed from the start.
Right.
And I knew they weren't a good partner, but I did anyway. Like it's just, it hurts so much more
right.
when you were actually all in.
Totally.
And then you knew it, but your friends knew it, your family knew it. Like you feel a level of like refusal to feel embarrassed too. It's like your own self-image.
Self-protection?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So one of your posts just was talking about red flags and how they are an extension of what feels familiar. So many of us are like,
Red flag this, red flag that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if it feels familiar, maybe it isn't such a red flag. You're like, I can deal with this in this moment.
Why do we find ourselves in the things that we would consider red flags? And I think like we're drawn towards certain things because they are familiar to us, right? And so like we're not so off base to be like, oh my God, I see all the red flags, but I'm interested in that. It's like, yeah, like if you're interested in them or you feel compelled or drawn to them, right? It's like there is something that's familiar about that. It points right back to everything that we've been talking about today, which is, it's like we need to resolve certain things so that we're not drawn into the things that are hurtful, harmful, dangerous for us, whatever those red flags might be. I don't know. What's a good example of a red flag for people? Like the emotional unavailability piece?
Yeah, like it's funny because we were talking to a girlfriend not too long ago. She's in this relationship and she's like, I know all these red flags. I'm choosing to ignore them. I was like, well, that's at least we're self-aware, and it was just like not feeling prioritized and not feeling consistency from the other person.
Yeah. Like engaging with red flags is actually still an opportunity for our healing. Do you know what I mean? Like when I said before, pain is really clever. Pain finds clever ways to present us with the familiar stuff so that we have to do the work that we've been talking about today. And so when we're drawn to a red flag and we're like, well, I'm just choosing to ignore it. Like red flags are still giving us an opportunity to heal.
Okay.
You see that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's like, it's still giving, right? Because it cracks something open, right? Because, okay, you engage with the red flag. The person is emotionally unavailable. At the end of the day, the person's not going to choose you. The relationship's going to end. Oh, here we go again, right? And it's like, it brings you back to the pain again and again and again. And at some point, we're going to be ready to turn towards it. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to just ignoring it or like, okay, I'm not going to look at the sign or I don't want to engage with it or I don't want to understand what it's trying to reveal to me. You know what I mean? So it's like at some point we will be willing to listen and look and learn.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we had was feeling as though you failed in quotes or quote unquote didn't try hard enough when a relationship ends.
Yeah.
We love this concept too. Just
Because I don't believe in it.
having a relationship that it's a failure because you didn't die together like the Notebook at the end of it. That's not accurate.
It's so heartbreaking because so much of that shame will come from other people too. Like sometimes we're in an okay place and then you hear people so upset and tell you like you gave up and your vows must not have meant anything and this, that, and the other, right? And it's like, of course, nobody goes into relationships like, can't wait for this to end. We all know that. And I think sometimes, we misjudge this, that an ending is, that it just means that it is failure and that you didn't try hard enough. I think the goal would be that you gain some wisdom, along the way. And listen, we know longevity in relationships is not necessarily correlated with our joy and our happiness and the connectivity.
Yes.
Sometimes it is, right? Like it's incredible. Sometimes you see people who go through so many stages of life together. I don't know if you have any elderly people in your lives who are together. And, sometimes there's these like really, really beautiful, beautiful relationships that have really seen and gone through the test of time. But I think we have to move away from this idea. And that's not an invitation to just end relationships and not work at them, right? I think sometimes people hear that and they're like, do you not believe in trying hard? And it's like, no, of course, right? It's like not one or the other.
Totally.
But endings don't have to mean that you gave up. And I think it's important when people think about like why you hold such a strong belief about things like that. Like, where does that come from? What did you see growing up? Did your parents go through a divorce? What did you experience? Are you clinging on to something from an ending in the past when you feel like, your partner didn't fight for you at all? Or, what is showing up in this moment when you're claiming something like that?
Maybe it feels like a lack of control.
Yes.
Because like you were like, I can do this. I could do hard things. I can do relationships. And when it quote unquote fails, you're like, but I should have been better than this.
Yeah.
Well, and you said you gained wisdom. You could have gained so much more than that. Like you could have been in love. It's like such a beautiful thing. And I think it's pretty rare, at least in my personal experience. And you could have had a kid. I mean, there's just so many things that like can come out of a relationship that doesn't last until you both die.
Totally. Did it give you joy for a couple months?
Yeah.
Great.
Learn to about yourself, your
like
sex life, maybe. Like so many things.
Yeah.
These relationships define us.
That's right.
The metrics for the world.
The metrics need to change. I love what you just said. Like, I learned something about myself. I learned something about my partner. I learned something that I enjoy sexually differently.
Yeah.
Right? It's like these things. And here's the thing: we like live longer. We marry at a certain point. We as humans change over time, and sometimes people change together.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. And sometimes we change in different directions. And so our chapters of life with partners sometimes don't go all the way to the end. Like you said, like sometimes we do not die hand in hand in the same bed. Right? It's like sometimes we get to have 20 years together. Sometimes we get to have 2 years together. I call them our soul helpers, right? Whether people come in for a lifetime or a few years or even a few hours, right? Where they like come in and change something. They change the trajectory. And I think that that's the wisdom, the nugget of, oh my gosh, I learned this part about myself. And I think we would all do a little bit better if we could be a little gentler in this space and change up some of those metrics.
I agree.
Oh, yeah, I love this. Stay here all day.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
On that
And
beautiful
people,
note.
if they want to find so much more of your content, you really have like such a wealth. So thank you for being here. And maybe you can tell people where to find your
Instagram,
podcast, your book, everything.
Yeah, totally. Right. So the book is The Origins of You. You can get that anywhere that books are sold. I'm getting more comfortable saying that. When people are like, you're an author. I'm like, I'm not an author.
Yes,
no, you're actually an author. I'm like, okay, I'm an author. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram at mindfulmft. Like you said before, the podcast is called This Keeps Happening, which it's really interesting, right? It's
love
like
the title.
I'm
Best
speaking
name.
with anonymous guests who are struggling with something. And we have a one-time, like 1 hour consultation. And it's much harder than therapy just because I don't know them or know much about them at all. But it's really beautiful to see what, when people come together to have a conversation, like what can actually be accomplished. And I'm always struck by how much gets done. So yeah, you can listen to This Keeps Happening anywhere you get your podcasts.
Okay. Of course. Well, you guys check everything out that Vienna is doing. We love her so much. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And of course, you can find us at girlsgottaeat.com for the remaining tour tickets on our tour. Not
Two more.
Two left.
That's
They're
it.
pretty much almost sold
There's like
out,
2
but-
tickets left. So get them.
Grab those. Girls Gotta Eat podcast on Instagram and TikTok. I am Ash Hess. Raina is Raina.Greenberg. And of course, Vibes Only. Get those new products, vibesonly.com. And subscribe on YouTube. Share this episode with a friend that may be in need. And we'll see you next week.
Have a good week, guys.
Bye.